It's very important in life never to take anything for granted. But at the same time, it's very common to do just that, right? Something that we think is always going to be there, something that we feel is always going to be in place and that we can always rely upon, suddenly in a wisp of smoke can be poof, completely gone and vanished. Or at the very least, diminished to an extent that it leaves us utterly confused. It leaves us shaken, unsure of how to face the new day, where to take things next. Now, somewhere in one area of your life or another, besides the obvious, which is going to be present with this present set of circumstances, and I'm so tired of talking about it, I'm not even going to say what, right? But somewhere in one area of your life or another, you're finding yourself in just such a situation. Now, what area of your life might that be? That's going to be related to whatever Venus is associated with in your horoscope, where it's placed, the houses that it rules, etc., plus many other factors related to this Venus retrograde period. And if you'd like a little bit of assistance in terms of figuring that out, I do offer several different levels of astrological service and at a sliding scale rate of fees at the link above. So when that happens, when you find yourself, for lack of a better way to put it, well, on shifting ground, your values change. You may find yourself at this particular moment in time going, all those things that I never thought I would think about, that I never thought I would believe in, that I never would consider as being true, now I'm suddenly finding myself considering those very things, right? And as I do that, there's a new sense of purpose that's arising within me. You're dealing with the chaotic situation. For lack of a better way to put it, you're dealing with fallout. You're having to pick up the pieces, put them back together again, accept a new way of life that, well, perhaps is quite difficult for you to accept. But in the midst of it, it's also giving you some ideas, I would imagine, in terms of how you can reconstruct things, perhaps put things back together in a better way than they were before. Even though something you thought was one way is no longer that way, on another level, you're beginning to see how things actually are. And even though accepting the truth in that particular capacity can be something that's very difficult to do, it's something that you need to get into the habit of accepting. And the sooner you can get into that habit of accepting it, the better off that you're going to be. Now, Venus is going to be transiting retrograde through Mrigasira Nakshatra through to the 1st of June. As that happens, it's receiving an aspect from Mars for a large portion of that. We're going to talk a little bit about that. It's conjuncting Mercury and the Sun and Rahu again for a large portion of that. And we're going to kind of touch on all those things in this particular video. And we'll do a new video for Venus's retrograde through Rohini Nakshatra when we approach that particular period of time. Right? So as you're putting things back together again, as you're growing and perhaps seeing things in a new way of light, a new manner, I should say, which is most likely going to happen when Mercury begins its transit through Rohini Nakshatra. Shortly into this transit, you're going to find yourself going, okay, this is how it is. I can take that in, I can digest it, I can grow, I can move forward with this, and I can begin to be more productive in creating something different in my life. Until you reach a point round about the 19th when you're going to find yourself going, okay, well, that wasn't working quite like I wanted it to. Let's see how I can pick up the threads of the new threads, right, that I'm being shown with this particular situation, and put those back together in another different way. Now, Mars, as it begins this transit, is in Shatabhishak Nakshatra. Mars in Shatabhishak Nakshatra, you've got a tamasic planet in a nakshatra that has tamasic tendencies. So there's going to be some problems, right? But Mars is also very purpose-driven. Shatabhishak Nakshatra has a very deep connection, although many people don't know it, to earth changes. We're certainly dealing with massive earth changes right now in relation to something that is a healing crisis, which is another factor that's connected to Shatabhishak Nakshatra. So things may be chaotic, but in the midst of that chaos, something new is emerging. Round about the 24th, as you have been picking up the threads of what you think it is that you need to do, you're going to reach perhaps a stumbling block. When you hit that stumbling block, well, I'm not going to lie to you, which I would never do that in the first place. It's going to be rather frustrating. You can do something with that frustration rather than just let it get the better of you, rather than decide you're going to do something like take a pen and throw it across the room or do something stupid like that, or take a drink coaster, kind of go like that, right? You can do that too if you want to, but it's not really going to help anything. What's going to help is recognizing that, perhaps it's okay, right? Perhaps it's okay to not get things right immediately. Perhaps it's okay to go back to the drawing board over and over and over again. But don't delude yourself into thinking that what is emerging at this particular moment in time is something that is going to remain steady and stable, right? True progress doesn't necessarily come upon the back of stability. Sometimes it comes upon the back of chaos. Sometimes it comes upon having the apple cart turned completely upside down and all the apples laying around on the ground until you find that golden one that was buried underneath that pile of apples in the first place. And you wouldn't have even found that damn golden apple if the apple cart hadn't have been overturned in the first place. So don't get so harsh on frustration and chaos. Chaos is a precursor of creativity. It's giving you an opportunity if you approach things, perhaps in a balanced perspective. And as we reach the tail end of this transit, which starts around the 26th, Mercury will be shifting into Ardra Nakshatra, where it will be joining Rahu. That's positive on one level and difficult on another level. It's positive because Mercury is really strong, right? And as Mercury is really strong, it's giving a lot of support to Rahu. Mixed in with that, though, are going to be feelings of doubt. I'm going to tell you the things to watch out for in association with this, right? There's nothing wrong with dreaming. There's nothing wrong with visualizing something, setting a plan, taking steps, moving towards it, right? But you have to be willing to reassess the situation over and over and over again. We've got Rahu connecting to several planets. It's connecting to Mercury, it's connecting to Venus, and it's connecting to the Sun during this transit of Venus retrograde through Mrigasira Nakshatra. That brings a complete and utter lack of a sense of direction, a tendency to have strong, compulsive desires of something that you really want to create, but to perhaps inflate it to the level that you'll never find yourself in a position of being able to achieve it in the first place. As you find that frustration dawning upon you in association with not being able to achieve your new conscious desires, that can make doubt come creeping in. Doubt can be good too, right? You may be going, okay, well, doubt's no fun. And he said that, frustration was fun. And he said that chaos is fun. All those things are good, because if you question, that's a good sign. Because if you're questioning, you're not going to take anything for granted. You're not just going to listen to something that someone's feeding you and take it as the gospel truth. Now, during this particular transit, some other things that are going to be going on the world stage, you're likely going to find, there's a helicopter flying over. Oh my God, they're hearing me talking. I'm just joking, right? So one of the things that you're going to find is that you're likely going to be rethinking how you approach media in your life. And that's a good thing too, right? Because at the end of the day, media, and mainstream media especially, and even some non-mainstream media, on many levels, sometimes there can be another agenda beneath the surface rather than just sharing information. Sometimes there can be the agenda of selling advertising. Sometimes there can be the agenda of selling newspapers. And we know a good story really sells, okay? So it's a good thing during this time, even though it can be disconcerting, to reassess how you approach media, okay? Don't just look at one story. Don't just look at one story, click the like button and share it with everybody, right? Check the sources of your news. Check who you're dealing with. Check who you're reading your news from before you share things and before you spread it on a larger level, because things like that have a tendency of having a snowball effect, okay? So check your media sources. That's one really good thing to do. Don't just get your news from just one media source. Look at several different ones, but don't accept any of them as being the gospel truth, right? That's a hard thing to do too, because one part of you wants to feel like it can trust absolutely everything and everyone, okay? But you need to kind of take it slow with this and approach media on a different level. That's what's happening on the global level, right? On your own personal level, reassess those desires that you built up, the new way you were thinking of approaching things. It's okay to doubt things, because you're gonna the process of doubt will get you into a space where you'll find the truth in association with what you're trying to build, where you'll see things realistically rather than see things idealistically. The idealistic part of you needs to be there, because that idealistic part of you is going to help you to build a new way forward, which during this Venus retrograde period in Mrigasira Nakshatra, you've also got Jupiter retrograding through Uttada Ashada Nakshatra and Saturn retrograding through Shravana and Uttada Ashada Nakshatra. You're going back over old ground, right, that you went over, well, in the most recent months, since about the beginning of January. You're taking a look at things. You're going to be seeing things from a clearer perspective than you were able to see them previously. And again, as I was saying earlier, that can be both disconcerting, but it can be helpful. So as you begin to see things in a new light, of course it's going to raise doubts. Of course it's going to go, well, perhaps I was being silly in envisioning this. And, perhaps to a certain degree you were, but perhaps to a certain degree you weren't, right? And it's just figuring out to what degree you were being stupid and to what degree you were being absolutely the wisest person in the world. So don't dampen down the dreamer, but check that dreamer with a good dose of realism. And that's a good, healthy way to approach this situation. So in short, with this approaching transit, which is taking place from the 13th of May all the way through to the 1st of June, here are the things that you need to be focusing on, right? Although your world may feel upside down at the moment, right? You're being given a new opportunity. You need to build that new opportunity and build it strong upon a solid foundation. So you can build it upon a solid foundation, you need to question. You need to doubt. You need to not take anything for granted, because the problem was that you previously did take something for granted. Don't take anything for granted anymore. And find a way of setting things up from this particular moment onward that you're going to allow for fresh growth in all the areas of your life related to this particular situation. And hey, why not expand beyond that boundary and allow that to happen in other areas of your life as well? So as I mentioned before, if you could use a little bit of help, well, putting back the pieces, picking them up, threading them back together again, and realizing that on one level, you're not left with nothing, you're left with something, but you kind of have to build it up from the bottom. If you could use a little bit of help with that, I do offer several different levels of astrological service at a sliding scale rate, all available through my website, which you will find linked above. That's going to do it for this look at Venus's transit in retrograde motion through Mrigasira Nakshatra from the 13th of May to the 1st of June 2020. Until next time, please do take the very best care of yourself. Bye now.